We will reduce the welfare bill in a way that is fair and lasting and helps people move forward.
What are Andy Burnham's plans for welfare? Soon he'll be walking up this street, heading to the door of number 10. He's already said that welfare reform is going to be a top priority, but his plans will mean doing things very differently than how they're done at the moment.
You can't batter them with sanctions towards work.
For people who can't work, there is no case for reducing their benefits.
There's a good version of benefit reform.
The cuts first approach of Keir Starmer was rejected by Andy Burnham last year, and he has been squeamish about sanctions for benefits claimants in the past.
It's going to be, again, something that I will do in a different way to the usual way that it's done down here in Westminster. You often will get an approach, calls in newspapers for people to be tough on benefits.
But with a hard-nosed chief of staff, where will they end up? We've spoken to those who've been working with him to find out more. Do you think the welfare budget's too high?
I do think it is too high. I don't think it is sustainable. I think there are actually three ways in which you reduce the bill. You can cut the amount that people are given, you can reduce who is eligible for it, or you can get people into work. And I'd say that the answer is the third, you get people into work.
This year, over £350 billion will be spent on welfare, with almost half of that on pensioners. The number of people on unemployment benefits, particularly among the young, has been rising recently, and for the middle-aged, things haven't recovered to pre-pandemic levels. But despite constant talk of a booming welfare cost, working age and child benefits are not that much higher as a percentage of GDP than in the early 2000s. So what is Burnham's solution?
We need a complete rethink of how we support the next generation to succeed. And we will answer the call from the mayors for devolution of employment support.
This will involve bypassing the Treasury, a 2-decade source of frustration for Andy Burnham, and rewire the top of Whitehall, led by a senior cabinet minister. He is, I'm told, absolutely evangelical about this in his discussions with Whitehall officials. He wants to push control of housing and welfare, skills, all the way down to local councils and mayors.
So it's not going to be easy, not least because, about 40% of England, for example, isn't covered by mayors. And in other parts of the country, mayors are still quite a young phenomenon. So we are going to have to couple this with a big transfer of expertise from Westminster Whitehall, and kind of creating those teams of people from health, education, skills and DWP working together with local councils and mayors.
This doesn't sound like a 2-year project. This sounds closer to a 10-year project.
I think this is a 10-year project, but I think that's why Mr. Burnham was right to say that it is going to take a bit of time to turn around this oil tanker.
But moving the decision out of this postcode doesn't lower the bills.
I think it is difficult to bring down the benefits bill without looking at entitlements, eligibility and need, and a real reform package will have to look across that. What we need to do, compared to the debacle earlier in the Parliament, is think about the benefits we're paying and why. There are some benefits paid to compensate for the costs of being disabled. Are those working well? Are those actually going to people who face higher costs? There are some benefits that are paid to incentivise work, and we need to look at the structure of those.
So what could he do? Mental health support from employers is a nailed-on plan. His new chief of staff has pushed removing free bus passes and TV licences from pensioners in the past. Meanwhile, removing disability benefits, known as PIP, from the under-30s will be a more difficult sell.
If you just cut the support people have, it pushes them into destitution and precarity. It makes it very hard for them to engage in the labour market. If you basically narrow the number of people that get support, that often tends to be quite arbitrary, and you get those edge examples where someone desperately needs it and then they're just left to languish.
But saving money elsewhere in the benefit bill has already been ruled out. He's taking off the table changes to the triple lock. What do you think of that?
I think it's a big mistake. The triple lock is not just about how generous do we want to be to pensioners, but also about what's a sensible way to get there. In terms of generosity, there are still pensioners in poverty, and we should be very worried about them, but the triple lock has not proved to be an effective anti-poverty mechanism.
1 in 4 voters think we spend too much money on welfare, and with pressures on spending, particularly for defence, Andy Burnham is going to have to tackle this area. But all of this will be a tough sell to his MPs. As one ally of Andy Burnham put it to me, I am more welfare than warfare.